This is lesson 8-8, factoring by grouping. So let's take a look at when we need to be doing this type of factoring. Factoring by grouping is part of what we call the AC method procedure. This is the procedure to factor trinomials that have the look of ax squared plus bx plus c. Factoring by grouping should also be done with higher degree polynomials and any polynomials that have more than 3 terms. Before attempting any type of factoring by grouping, make sure that you have no other GCFs that can be factored out, and always make sure that your polynomial is in standard form, that is to say, descending power form. Let's take a look at the factoring by grouping procedure with an example. So step 1 is to split the terms into 2 groups. Hopefully if it's 4 terms, you can have 2 on each side like I have in my example here. So I'm going to kind of draw this imaginary line, if you will, right in the middle so that I've split it into 2 different groups of terms. Step 2 is to use GCF factoring to factor each side of my line, if you will. What I want to have is a match left in parentheses. Let's take a look at what I get. When I factor 3n to the third minus 12n squared, I can factor out a 3n squared and I'm left with n minus 4. On the other side, with 2n minus 8, I can factor out the GCF of 2, and I'm left with n minus 4. n minus 4 is what matches inside the parentheses. This is exactly what I want if I've done factoring by grouping correctly. If I don't have a matching term inside the parentheses, I haven't done it correctly. I need to go back and fix it. Finally, write your 2 binomials from the match and the factors that were pulled out. So, I pulled out a 3n squared and a plus 2. That's going to be one of my binomials, and the other binomial will be the match, which is n minus 4. So I'm left with the quantity 3n squared plus 2 times the quantity n minus 4. Here's some examples for you to do. Pause the video at this point to give yourself a chance to do the examples on both sides. Here's your answer to the left side. First thing I do is split the terms in half, and then I'm going to factor out 2t squared from the left and 5 from the right. Then I rewrite it as 2 binomials to get the quantity 2t squared plus 5 times the quantity 4t plus 7. On the right, the first thing I can do is factor out a 4q. That's a GCF of all the terms. So I factor out a 4q and I'm left with q to the third minus 2q squared plus 3q minus 6. Then I'm going to factor by grouping what's in the parentheses. I factor out a q squared from the left side and a 3 from the right side. I'm finally left with 4q times the quantity q squared plus 3 times the quantity q minus 2. If you're having any difficulty with this particular lesson, please make sure you consult your teacher in class.